And then they told me that was boiled octopus, and I was like, oh, good Lord.
Interesting ice creams with gold foiling and everything.
The geishas in training are called maiko. Like really living in a premium resort. And then in Hiroshima, I visited the A-bomb dome. I had to request the station master for help. And
Wow.
their washroom, had all like gold leaf tiles. The storm has knocked everything to the ground. The famous orange torii gates that was made popular by memoirs of a geisha, the nuclear attack. Matcha flavored mochi. You can't just walk into these geisha homes.
Karaoke also was born in Japan.
Hiroshima has these special manhole covers. You get to go under a swimming pool. On every floor, they were making different kinds of that omelette. They had to keep all their weapons outside.
Anime, manga.
People sleeping while standing upright. Not
My
sure.
jaw almost dropped.
A little like this, little like that. It changes expression. Behind closed doors in pachinko, pachinkos and karaokes. In Japan, I broke the soles of one pair of shoes.
I used to love Doraemon.
The leeches might be attracted. So Studio Ghibli store, and they had the cutest merchandise. It's going to give you the shock of your life. There are these three gentlemen who are wearing white overalls in the pop-up ramen stores in Delhi. And suddenly I find myself here sitting in one booth. They're sitting there in the darkness and, sipping tea. Pokemon store, which was a big deal.
In fact, Japan's history is full of violence. Ikigai, wabi-sabi. So friends, today we are joined by a special guest whose journey with Japan spans years of immersive experience and deep cultural connections. She first traveled to Japan as an exchange student. Now, as a magazine editor and a podcaster herself, she continues to explore Japanese culture with a keen, thoughtful eye. In this conversation, she shares her personal stories of what it truly means to be in Japan. So, welcome, Hideko. And after reviving my podcast, you're the first guest. Thank you for coming. And
Thank you, Shweta, for inviting me.
So, Hideko, we have known each other for a long time.
10 years.
And yeah. So, today's podcast is on Japan. Japan
One of
is
my favorite topics.
wow. And you have been to Japan, I guess,
Yes.
more than once, maybe
4
2 or 3.
times, and I've lived there for half a year. So, yes, I'm quite familiar with life in Japan.
Wow. What all places have you been to in Japan?
All right. The first time I visited Japan, I was staying in Osaka. It was a study abroad program for like 4 months. So I was with a host family in Osaka, Hirakatashi to be precise.
Okay.
And while I was in Osaka, I also visited Nara. That's the place where you have many Buddhist temples. You have the deer, the pictures that you see in Japan.
Yes, yes, yes.
Very friendly deer. So that's
Right.
Yes. And that is also the place where you have the famous orange torii gates that was made popular by memoirs of a geisha. A little girl
Right.
ran through the orange gates. So I went there. I climbed all the way up
Wow.
to the little fox shrine at the top. And then it was
Right.
raining when we came down. There were 5 of us foreigners. And we were like skidding down the stairs because it was so slippery. And some of us needed to use the washroom, and there were no washrooms there. It was like a mad rush to come down. And so that was Osaka. Then I made a short visit to Hiroshima, and
Right.
I made a fleeting visit to Tokyo. And where else did I visit? Yeah. And oh yes, the favorite place that I have in Japan is Kanizawa in Ishikawa Prefecture. And
So 1 second, we'll
yeah,
go back to Nara.
Nara.
Uh,
Okay.
Now, I know you like Japanese food a lot.
Oh yes.
And Nara is famous for mochi, which is now being made in India also. It's
Yes.
a delicacy in India as well. Tell me
Uh-huh.
something about mochi.
Okay, so mochi, the first thing that comes to mind is that I bought 2 packets of matcha flavored mochi for
Matcha, okay.
my colleagues. Back in the day, it was a different job, and I got them for my colleagues, and one of them really appreciated the
Wow.
mochi. And the other told me, well, we put it in our fridge and then we forgot about it. The flavor wasn't really
Oh my God.
liking. So the thing
That's
is, that because Japanese food is so hard to come by,
Hmm.
my strongest memories of Japanese food are these moments that were like quite heartbreaking. There was this candy that I really liked, and I think it was by the candy company Meiji. They're really
Okay,
famous there. And
right.
I don't really remember the name of it, but it's got like three layers. It looks like a little hamburger. And my favorite
Okay,
was a grape flavor. So I got
right,
that also back. And I was in the US. I was studying there, right? So I got this
right.
candy back, and my friend was like, hey, let me try it. So I give her one, and she just like spat it out, saying, the flavor's not for me. So yeah, I mean, mochi isn't the thing that I had the most in Japan, but
Hmm.
I liked it well enough to bring it back as souvenirs, and they melt very easily. So you have to be very careful
Right.
you're transporting them, and Japanese food is really for those who experiment with different cuisines,
Hmm.
and there's a lot to experiment with, lot to
Japanese seafood is very famous. They
yeah,
love their seafood.
yeah.
Hmm.
And on my last day in Tokyo, when I was
Hmm.
about to leave, my friends called me over to their home, and they had this little bowl with these little like purple white pieces of something that was
Hmm.
seafood.
Hmm.
And I was like, what's this? I said, well, try it. And I did, and it was delicious, right? So I cleaned out the whole bowl. And then they told me that was boiled octopus. And I was like, oh, good
Oh
Lord.
my God. Okay, being a
Yeah.
vegetarian, I can't imagine that you had.
Well, I was vegetarian for 18 years of my life, and I forced my
Oh,
parents to also be vegetarian. So, yeah, I do know where you're coming from, but if you're
right. Hmm.
experimental, you try different things and you find different loves.
Of
Yeah.
course. So, how was the experience in Kanizawa?
It was completely different from the experience in Osaka,
Hmm.
particularly because Kanazawa to me was like the countryside, but like a very landscaped, beautiful countryside, like an upscale
Hmm.
countryside. Because Kanazawa is famous for its Kenroku-en Gardens. And
I
yes,
heard about them.
they're
I've read
hundreds of
about them a
years
lot.
old, beautiful landscaping, and it's got something for every season. And very fortunately, my host parents were the
Hmm.
fourth generation owners of these hundreds of years old tea garden. So right in
Oh,
my backyard was this
how
hundreds of years
interesting.
old tea garden,
Right.
and where my host mom used to hold tea ceremonies. So
Okay.
like really living in a premium resort, and you get to be part owner. I mean, they really made me feel like it was my home as well. So yes, the one thing that is similar for me in Osaka and Kanazawa was that I walked a lot. I was like constantly hiking, going here
Hmm.
and there to explore things, and I continue doing that in Ishikawa. In fact, for 4 or 5 hours every day after my language lessons, that's what I was
Hmm.
doing, exploring
Hmm.
museums. There are many, many museums there, and the landscape. So yeah, gorgeous place.
I've heard that they give a lot of sweets and savories with gold work on it.
Yes, so Kanazawa accounts for around 90% or more of the gold leaf, the sweets and savories and the
Right.
artifacts that they make for
Hmm.
whole of
Hmm.
Japan. And that's why I said it's like an upscale countryside. And
Hmm.
on one of my treks around the city, which by the way I was doing without a map, I think that's the best way to explore Japan. Like
You're
just
very
go out.
adventurous, huh?
Yeah, but that is Japan, you take a
But
map to
Japan's very
get in.
safe. Hmm.
Yes, well, quite safe.
Hmm.
And so then I chanced upon this shop where the people were actually making the gold leaf souvenirs. And
Wow.
their washroom, had all like gold leaf tiles.
Can you
And
imagine doing all that in today's with today's gold prices?
And the gold leaf they make is paper thin, no? So I saw them
Oh,
very meticulously putting it on their little fans and their bowls and the artwork. It was really something. It was amazing.
wow. Isn't it both Kanazawa and Nara are also famous for their geisha spots?
Yes, they are. And while I was now, I don't know if this was Osaka or Nara, but the geishas in training are called Maiko. They are the
Okay,
younger girls. So I
right.
remember walking around that Osaka Nara area, and suddenly I hear big commotion, and I'm hearing Maiko-san, Maiko-san, excited voices. And I turn around and I see that there is this van that's come, and I only see the back of her head, right? And I know it's a Maiko because she's got her hair done up and everything, and she's surrounded by people, and it's as if like a celebrity has alighted, and I couldn't get a
Wow.
peek in, but it felt so surreal that this like very beautiful looking person who's so
Hmm.
otherworldly is walking the same
Hmm.
street that I am.
No, their attire, their makeup, everything is really prim and proper at the same time, really OTT. I've
Yes.
only seen them in movies.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was absolutely surreal experience to see them in person because, like you, I had
Oh,
also only seen them in movies.
yes.
And in fact, in
Hmm.
Ishikawa, there is a place now. I don't remember what it's called,
Huh.
but when you walk there, it's got a lot of this old architecture, like old time houses, and
Exactly. Huh.
you can hear the geisha and the maiko playing the shamisen, ting ting ting, that stringed instrument. And
Oh,
you can't just walk into these geisha homes, like you need to. These are very prestigious places, so
you
I
have to
used
take
to
an
just.
appointment.
Yes, and appointments are
Okay.
also not for everybody, as from what I
Okay.
understand. So I would just walk there and hear them play the shamisen and feel it's like I've been transported to another world.
Sorry, what's its name?
Kenroku-en.
Kenroku-en.
Yes.
And so, what's so special about it? Why is it so famous?
I think what's special about it, as I mentioned, is that there's something in it for every season. So the garden's never barren, right? That's one.
Okay.
The other is the astounding variety of floral plants and the
Okay.
landscaping, you know.
Right.
And it's like you are walking into a fairyland. They've got these winding paths, they've got these pebble paths, then they've got little streams. And if you've seen anything of Japanese landscaping, you
Hmm.
will see that it has a very traditional yet very magical, whimsical feel to
And they're
it.
so precise about it and so particular about everything.
Yes, yes. And
In one of the museums, I'm sorry, in one of the museums in Japan,
uh-huh.
I saw they also have hot spring. If you're tired
Really?
of,
Uh-huh.
yeah, very interesting.
Uh-huh.
If you're tired of walking, and it's a
You just
huge
plop
museum,
yourself into it.
you can just dip your feet in a
Uh-huh.
hot spring
Oh,
and
that's
just,
amazing. Yes, the
I mean,
Japanese
Japan is
are
Japan.
so creative. And this reminds me of this one museum, the Museum of Modern Art I visited in Ishikawa. And
Right.
you get to go under a swimming pool. I mean, it's made like a swimming pool so the people on the surface can see there's someone under the water and you can
Oh,
see like
how amazing. Huh.
surprisingly, the people of Kanazawa didn't find it that much of a novelty because, it was always there. But for me, it was a real amazing experience. I took pictures under the water, I took pictures over the water.
I mean, so this is something of novelty. We don't see something
Yes,
like that in India.
absolutely. Yes.
Right. Okay. And when we talk about gold leaf production,
Uh-huh.
I was very surprised when I found on the internet that they're also selling cosmetics
Uh-huh.
with gold in it.
Uh-huh.
And okay, that may be so. But
Mhm.
then even their ice creams, such interesting ice creams with gold foiling and everything. So I was
Uh-huh.
like, wow, here people can't. In other countries, they would think twice to buy gold and they're selling, gold on top of everything.
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
like, wow, only Japan can do it.
Yes, I really like the thoughtfulness with which products are made in
Hmm.
Japan. And though I never had the gold leaf ice cream, I was a student on a budget.
Of
But
course, okay.
but I did try out, I love experimenting, as I said. So within
Hmm.
my budget, whatever I could experiment with in terms of food, I did. And an interesting thing about their ice creams is that they have vending machines for them. So you put in a few coins and then you get like whole cones coming out and you get to decide what flavor they're going to be. So it's done very conveniently and it's really like you're living in an anime, right? Everything happens at the touch of a
Anime.
button. Every
Japan has so many UNESCO World Heritage sites.
uh-huh.
And have you been to any? You've had a chance to
I
visit?
I have, yes. I can't recall their names, but in Osaka, many of the temples I visited, or some of them definitely were UNESCO sites. And then in Hiroshima, I visited the A-bomb dome,
Of
which
course.
yes, I'm not sure if it's a UNESCO site, but it's definitely something. I mean, it has a certification.
But
Yes,
otherwise, it's very significant. I mean, the world
yes.
knows about it. And the thing is that even if you don't know anything about Japan,
Hmm.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki is something that everyone knows about.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunate what happened there. But
Very.
as a city, I think it's really put that behind them now.
As a city, yes, very advanced, very well organized. And Hiroshima has these special manhole covers. And I believe quite a few cities in Japan have them. And, so Hiroshimas were particularly pretty. I remember taking pictures of them. And my friends and I were all very fascinated. Again, that attention to detail, the meticulousness with which they do everything there.
Wow.
And if I remember correctly, Hiroshima is also known for a very famous type of omelette. And yeah, there is a place near the A Dome where we went in the evening, and
Hmm.
it was like a towered structure, and
Okay.
on every floor they were making different kinds of that omelette. I think it's called Okonomiyaki. It's very thick and they use
Of course,
many.
it's kind of a pancake, isn't it?
Yes, it's
With
thick.
noodles and all in it.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. A trip to Hiroshima was like we took a bullet train from Hirakata, and it was a short trip, and nothing really prepares you for it. You know, you think
Yeah.
that you are prepared, but you are not when you actually go and see the exhibit. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to hear a survivor speak, but
No.
it's just seeing the exhibits, and especially for me, like, because I work on a children's journal, it was
Hmm.
really hard hitting for me to see watch the video where they had artwork done by the children of Hiroshima, and how they drew their memories of the nuclear attack. I think it's a place everybody should visit. When we are in Japan,
Hmm.
sometimes we forget that it's had a very tragic past. But I think
Hmm.
it's important, if we want to honor our visit to Japan, if we want to honor the country, we must also explore this side of it. Yes.
Hmm. Of course.
Mm.
I think Hiroshima is a must visit for anyone who's
Mm.
visiting Japan. Of
Mm.
course. And so, right now we're talking about traveling between various cities in Japan.
Mhm.
So, you usually take public transport, like trains and all?
Oh, yes, because the cabs are very fancy, very expensive. I mean, the
And like
chauffeurs
Ubers
wear
of India?
nice white gloves to drive
Hmm.
and black suits, so you can imagine just how expensive they are going to be. So I took a cab ride just once, and that was sponsored by the university I was at because I was switching from host family to the residence hall, you know. Uh,
Right.
I did get to experience it for like 10, 15 minutes. It was a short drive, but mostly
Okay.
I took the trains. Yes.
Right. Are there any etiquettes to follow when you're in Japan?
Many, many. So we were told, not to eat while walking, right? And
Oh,
I
is
mean,
it?
yes, and I'm not
My
sure.
jaw almost dropped
Oh,
because
yeah,
in India, you can't imagine that that
right.
kind
And
of
I'm not
discipline.
sure why that rule exists. Maybe the locals are afraid that people will litter, because you're obviously eating
Of
something.
course, huh?
So that's the reason that I can think of. I can't really think of other reasons. So there's that. And then of course, you can't eat on the train. But an interesting thing when you speak about etiquette is that on the trains, it's very common to see people sleeping while standing upright. So they'll either be holding on to the strap at the top
Don't
and they'll
tell
be
me.
right. And the train is like, lurching as it does, and everybody is stock still. And sometimes they're not even holding on to something. They're just so used to it that they're like stock still and sleeping. You know? So
Are
you've got,
Japanese not getting enough sleep? Why would they sleep on the train?
well,
But
possibly.
Japanese are known to be workaholics.
Yes, yes. So that's quite
Hmm.
possible. So I tried doing that too, and I think my balance in the Delhi metros, I can credit that to what I learned in Japan. So of course you have to respect their space there, and sometimes the Japanese trains can get very crowded. Luckily for
Oh,
me, I didn't always get to experience that, and
right.
I think the train service I used to take was the Keihan Railway, which is
Okay.
very popular in Japan, and in the winters, lovely because the seats were heated.
Wow.
Yes, so it was just we used to wait to get into the metro, the train, sorry, we call them
Hmm.
metros in Delhi, right? We used to wait to get
Right.
into the train to get away from the cold and sit on those warm seats.
And otherwise, apart from trains, you really have to walk in Japanese cities.
A lot, a lot. So
That's a
like
culture.
I mean, yes, I think people do walk a lot, and us foreign students definitely had to walk a lot. And like my
Hmm.
American friend said, well, specifically about Tokyo, he said Tokyo is hiking city, right? And he was there for like a month, and he broke the soles of two shoes. During
Oh
my
my
4 month
goodness.
stay in Japan, I broke the soles of one pair of shoes, and these were sturdy leather shoes, right? So
I'm
it's
really
no
surprised. That much probably, by the point by the time we reach that point that we're breaking our souls, it would be a year or maybe more than that.
right? And the thing is that because there's so much to see in Japan, you don't want to miss anything as, a foreigner, as a tourist. You want to see everything. So you're walking, walking, walking everywhere and over different kinds of terrain. So, but it's really worth it. Yes, and when I was staying in the res hall, we had tatami floors, and
Ah,
this one time, my clothes, the laundromats that we had, they could only dry a few articles of clothing at a time. So I
okay.
had to leave for a different city. So what I did was that I spread out my wet clothes on the furniture, right? And I do
Huh.
hope that my res hall managers are not hearing this. It's an emergency. So I spread them out there and I turned the heating up on high, right? And so I had a friend, he was American, and we were just chatting. And he said, "So, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I have to leave tomorrow. So, this is
Huh.
me, emergency drying my clothes." And he said, "Be very careful because if the heating goes up too much, if the temperature
Huh.
rises too much, the leeches might be attracted to the tatami floors." So I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I was living on the second floor and I'm wondering where are the leeches going to come from?
Just on second floor?
No, they may not have come onto the second floor, but because he
But
said leeches,
my
you know,
goodness.
and I had no idea how the weather worked there and what kind of critters I could expect in the heat. But yeah, yeah. So I experienced a heavy rain, typhoon kind of rain. So like we would put out our clothes to dry on the balcony in the morning. We come back from classes and we see the storm has knocked everything to the ground,
Oh
right?
my God.
And again,
Typhoons are very common, so are like earthquakes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So earthquakes, I'm not I mean, there were tremors, but the strong storms, yes, I did witness a few.
Okay.
And it was interesting how all of us foreign students were freaking out about it, and our Japanese counterparts are like, "Oh yeah, we're used to it. It's just regular weather for
And
us."
now that we're talking about traveling in Japan and
Uh-huh.
surviving in Japan, I want to ask you two things.
Uh-huh.
One is the language barrier.
Uh-huh.
A lot of Southeast Asian countries,
Uh-huh.
especially in Japan and China, they don't speak English
Right,
that
right.
much,
Uh-huh.
right? And second is, the public facilities, the washrooms, the toilets.
Yes, yes.
And they are the best in the world. So I am the first time I heard about Japanese toilets, the
Hmm.
self cleaning and then their self heating and all of that.
Yes.
I was like, when in India are we ever getting that?
Well, I would say that don't wish too soon because every good thing has its drawbacks, right? So I want to tell
Hmm.
you a funny anecdote. One of my aunts visited Japan. I was with her, and unlike you, she wasn't enamored of Japanese toilets. I mean, she had done no research on them. So she had no idea what to expect, right? So at this aunt of mine, it was quite funny the way it happened because I believe so. Two aunts of mine were in the same room, right?
Hmm.
And I believe that she was chatting about something that was of great interest to her. And, she
Right.
was chatting into the washroom, right? And she was using the facilities there while also chatting. And suddenly she screams and she comes running out looking spooked because what happened is that these washrooms have bidets, right? And they're
Oh,
like
yes.
strong gusts of water. So if you're not expecting
Right.
that, it's going to give you the shock of your life. It's going to send you shooting up from the toilet seat, which is what happened to her.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, so all technology requires expertise to how to use it,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Yes, very clean facilities, and the self-heating was godsend, especially in winters. And
Of
our,
course.
foreign student for chat forums were
Hmm.
always, this was always a hot topic
Hmm. Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we used to wonder, is it possible to, get these commodes back to our own country? Because they're just so amazing. And what was the other thing you asked about? The
Uh,
the first thing.
talking the language
Oh, yes.
barrier.
The language barriers. So, yes, you're right.
But
Unlike,
you know Japanese.
well, I mean, I learned Japanese for almost a year before I went to Japan. But that was like 10 years ago. So now I understand very little of Japanese. And there are like three writing scripts, which is hiragana, katakana, that's for foreign words, and kanji, that's the very complex Chinese characters. So hiragana is something that I can still read, and
Hmm.
katakana more or less. But katakana, because it's foreign words, it could be any foreign word in with the
Okay.
Japanese pronunciation. So it's hard to
Okay.
tell whether it's English or German or something else. But that's that. Yes, so when I went to Japan from my university, we were given the option of opting for Japanese only, which meant that we were given a badge which said
Hmm.
Japanese only, right? And when you wore that to university, the students and the teachers knew that they had to speak to you only in Japanese. So very ambitiously, I got that badge and I got this handmade chain out of paper craft by one of
Okay.
my classmates. And I strung
Right.
it on that chain and I took it to Japan. And when I arrived there and people started speaking to me in Japanese, I just looked at them and then very quietly I removed that thing and put it at the bottom of my suitcase, and that's where it stayed rest of my. So, yes, but I do want to say, when we talk about barrier, now
Oh.
my experience of Japan has been that the people are extremely helpful, right?
Hmm.
And I've heard other people also say the same thing. And of course, everybody has different experiences, right? But so this one time when I was in Osaka, I was returning home to my host parents from university, and it was dark. It was later than what I was used to. Classes ended later, or maybe we had gone on a trip to Nara afterward, or something like that. And I simply couldn't find my way back, right? And there were all these winding lanes, very picturesque and beautiful. And, these lanes also had these old style Japanese shingles on the
Okay.
sides. So, of course, I could lose myself there walking around and enjoying the scenery, but it was also getting late. So, what do I do, right? And I was shy to ask anybody, and there weren't even very many people there. So
Hmm.
then I see that there are these three gentlemen who are wearing white overalls, and they've got this one light bulb on, and they're doing something under that one light bulb, right? It turns, and I went to them and I asked them, "Hey, can you help me get to this address?" It turned out they were construction workers and they were just wrapping up for the day. And
Wow.
they, drove me in their pickup truck all the way to my doorstep. So,
Wow.
I mean, and this is just one of incident. There have been so many incidents that I ask people for directions and they leave what they are doing and they walk with me to my destination. And that was just so incredible for me that, people can take out that much time from the busy schedules to
Hmm.
do this for you. So I didn't particularly face a barrier. Whatever I wanted to do, I was able to do. And I think, yes, I was able to communicate and understand mostly what people are trying to say. Of course, it's always best if you know a language fluently, all right?
Right.
But
No, if we don't know Japanese at all and you've
yes.
gone there to study or to travel, then
Uh-huh.
how do you communicate? Through apps?
Well, I think if you're going there to study, obviously you would
Hmm.
have chosen a course that teaches in English, right? If you don't speak any Japanese.
Right.
So, in
Okay.
terms of study, in terms of syllabus, that's not going to be much of a problem. It was the same for us. Though we had training in Japanese, our courses were all in English except for the Japanese language course.
Right.
And in terms of like, how much English can be visibly seen in everyday life, like there were some train stations that had names of cities, destinations in English, and there were some that had none. So of course, at that time, I had to request the station master for help. And again, I was amazed how they would give me priority. They would
Wow.
prioritize my questions. So I think it's fairly easy to get around. Of course, if you're going for work, then it's advisable that you do learn some business Japanese, right?
Right.
But if
Hmm.
you're going there as a
At least
student,
carry a dictionary or something.
sorry.
Or carry a dictionary or a working app.
Yes, I mean, if you're going for business, obviously you need to know these things. Oh, yes,
Hmm.
and some of us, including me, we bought this thing called, what was it called now? Okay, I forget the Japanese name for it, but it was a digital dictionary. It was quite
Hmm.
expensive, and we all bought it together. We went to this one store, which is known for its electronic gadgets, and there are different
Okay.
levels of these dictionaries. So it comes with a nice touch pen, and you can, write down the kanji that you want translated. And it didn't
Wow.
help us much with our actual exams because, it was more for the novelty of it. But that is also an option. So many of us had these in our bag, and we would quickly slip it, flip it open if we wanted to understand what a sentence or a word is saying that we didn't know. So,
Right.
yeah, that was quite helpful.
These days, I guess there is Google Translate and everything, and then you're
Hmm.
not too much
There are
dependent
so
on
many translation apps, yes. And then you've got
mm-hmm.
ChatGPT also, as long as you're willing to
ChatGPT.
believe.
Exactly. So, next we come to Japanese food.
Okay.
We have discussed one or two Japanese sweets and savories.
Uh-huh.
But it's become the Japanese food has become such a craze in India. We have, I don't know if boba is from Japan or is it from
I'm
Korea?
not sure if it originated in Japan or Korea, but it is East Asian. I mean,
It's
there's a
East
lot of
Asian.
it there. But then there's a
Then,
lot of boba also in the US, so I don't really know about its origins.
okay.
Hmm.
And then, if not boba, ramen, nowadays you see
Uh,
so many pop-ups of ramen everywhere, in local
uh-huh.
markets.
Uh-huh.
So, and then, like I said, now mochi is appearing on fine dine restaurants menu and
Uh-huh.
everything. Then, what was your experience with Japanese food? And did you experiment anything new apart from your octopus?
Apart from I experimented with many things, and this may not be very appetizing to you, but I also experimented with their pickles. So in Osaka, there was this market, and this market had many open stores. So you just go in there, like they don't have like a closing door. They're just like open like stalls, but kind of bigger and better established.
Right.
There were a few where there were all these like very, like multiple colored pickle lying around. So I picked up the strangest looking ones, like deep blue pickle.
I'm
And
expecting what's coming. Abhi dekho. What's coming out of my mind? Okay. Please
and
go ahead.
violet colored pickles and all. So and I really love them. And also speaking of ramen, that was one of my favorite dishes in Japan. And as you mentioned, the pop-up ramen stores in Delhi now, there's so
Right.
many in Japan. Like every corner has a pop-up ramen store. And
Mm-hmm.
specifically in my university,
Mm.
there was always a long line of students waiting to get that ramen and also soba, which is a slimmer noodle.
Ha.
Tamago, which is egg. So it's like a boiled egg. And that was like hot currency to get that tamago. And it used to run out really fast. So if you couldn't
Okay.
get the tamago, you would get like a tempura, like a fried vegetable put in there.
Tempura is my favorite.
And
And
if
so
you
is
couldn't
sushi.
even get the tempura, if you were
Ha.
that late getting to the canteen, then you would get like a slim little slice of onion as
Oh.
compensation. And there were also these places called izakaya. And
Ha.
izakaya were inexpensive little stores where you could get like curry bowls and you could get the ramen and the noodles. And these are really
Okay.
popular with students. So
Right.
we used to
So
frequently
students could
visit.
afford those things.
Yes, yes.
You can afford, okay. And those
Izakaya
are the
certainly was affordable. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But
So there
then
are food kiosks on the streets there.
oh, yes, yes, many, many of them. And of course, depending on the grade of the food, obviously some things would be expensive. Like I remember in Ishikawa, my friend's host mother, so
Hmm.
basically Ishikawa has many elderly people, right? And obviously they're well settled in society. It's a small place and, they're all artistically inclined. So everybody knows everybody. So my friend's host mother took us to this soba restaurant and she
Hmm.
requested the restaurant owner to open it just for us on a, a weekend.
How sweet. How sweet
Yes.
of her.
And they served us cold soba, like cold noodles. It's the first time
There's
I.
something called cold soba.
Yes, it's
It's not.
actually cold.
Ah, I know.
Yes,
Uh,
and the soba noodles were kind of grayish in color and a little
hmm.
grainy in texture. And those, I believe, were quite expensive. We didn't get charged for it because it was on the house, but that was gourmet, what we had.
Um,
So not the
hmm.
same as what we were having in the izakaya or in our canteen, cafeteria, but it's like the food everywhere is amazing. So the price tag really doesn't matter unless,
Hmm.
you're a connoisseur of fine dining.
Right. Now, talking about fine dining and fine taste and everything super
Uh-huh,
expensive,
uh-huh,
or, the culture of Japan,
uh-huh.
have you sat for a tea ceremony?
Yes, I have. And I
Wow.
was
Please
so
explain.
fortunate that I didn't just sit for a tea ceremony, I got to co-host it. It was an
Wow.
it was a high honor for me, and I
Were
don't
you
even
kind of trained in it? Because it's an
I
elaborate ceremony.
yes, yes. So my host mother in Ishikawa, she was a team ceremony master. And she used to take
Oh.
classes. She used to teach middle-aged women from like highly affluent families how to conduct tea ceremonies. And so I sat in on a few of her classes, and because she knew that I'm so much into art and culture, so she
Mm.
told me, Hideko-san, why don't you invite your friends to come for this tea ceremony, and you can co-host it, right? So
Oh,
she was
nice of
doing
her.
everything and I
Huh.
was like the placeholder host, right?
Okay.
And yes, so of course, like the steps of it, the stirring of the matcha, and then the bowl going around. It's the same bowl went around to everybody. And if I
Huh.
remember correctly, we had to slightly rotate the bowl as it came to us, so
Huh.
you don't
Huh.
put your mouth in the same place where the person before you put it. And it's like you
So
take a sip. Yeah,
basically, everyone's taking a sip from the same bowl.
same bowl, yes.
Okay.
I don't know if there are different kinds of tea ceremonies because
Hmm.
when I read about it, I haven't come across this sharing of the bowls. But
Okay.
we did that, and after taking a sip, we then have to bow to the person, to our right, to our left, and I wasn't even sure if my friends would be interested in this, right? Because I was the art and culture enthusiast. They used to go to karaoke
Not everyone would. Okay,
every.
karaoke nights. By the way, karaoke also was born in Japan. The term and the culture.
But I'm not surprised because karaoke was everywhere. And I think I was
Mhm.
one of the few students who was not particularly keen on it. Oh, yes.
You're not too much of a singer, Hideko, are you?
I do enjoy singing. You know what happened is that the first time we went for karaoke, we went in a
Huh.
group, and I don't know why, maybe because it was the first time. I was just feeling kind of awkward
Hmm.
and I didn't give myself time to like really settle into it. And also,
Right.
I'm so gung-ho about I want to visit places. And suddenly I find myself here sitting in one booth and I'm looking at like lyrics of songs that I don't really know. So, it's bit of the thing that, okay, but I want to explore. What am I
Hmm.
doing sitting
Hmm.
here? And yeah, I
Right.
didn't really give myself time to get used to it. So I did have a pass for karaoke. And my Japanese friends told me to get it made the first day. And I gave that very
Okay.
generously to another foreign friend
Right.
of mine.
Tell me something. What is this concept about, sharing tea or having an elaborate ceremony for just having tea? I mean, for us, it's just having tea. But of course, Japanese, the tea ceremony is kind of a prayer. It's kind of something very serious.
Yes, yes, it's very thoughtfully done. Tea garden, which my host families owned, they had an old-timey tea house, right? And this is not the tea house that they used for their lessons. This was the actual, like, hundreds of years old structure. And my host mom told me that the way it was built was such that once you are inside, like three people, four people, there is no light, right? And so you can't really see the person sitting before you or next to you. And she said that when people would visit this,
So mysterious, yeah.
they would visit this tea room, they had to keep all their weapons outside, right? Leave them outside because when they're
Okay.
inside, there is no status among them, right? There is no hierarchy. They're
Okay.
just people. They're sitting there in the darkness and sipping tea.
And just
So,
enjoying it.
yes, so the thing that I understood from this is that they were looking for tranquility, and they
Hmm.
understood that tranquility would come without, this unnecessary ego and hierarchy and, awareness of status and all that. So that was really fascinating to me, and I feel that it's so important to have these little pockets where you
Hmm.
can just be with people, like just experience the comfort of
Hmm.
people, right? Comfort of
Hmm.
human presence without feeling obligated to present yourself as a certain somebody, you know so in that context, I think this is why the tea ceremonies are done so mindfully, but I'm sure there is a lot more to it which I didn't
Hmm.
really get into. So I can't really
Hmm.
speak for it. Yes.
No, that's being very fortunate that you could experience it from such close quarters. I mean,
Yes.
otherwise, a visitor or traveler would just go there and, I don't know if they would
Do a
if
workshop.
they would know the significance of it and,
Yes.
you
I
have
mean,
to
I
be
do
serious
wish
about it.
that now that you're asking me these questions, I do wish I had asked in, more detail my host mom for
Hmm.
these things. But
Right.
I'm sure I'll get an opportunity.
Um, Now, from food, we jump to another cultural phenomenon,
Uh-huh.
and that is anime, manga. And Hideko, I know that you're a big fan of anime. You used to watch anime all the time. I don't know if you still do that.
I like
Tell
how
me
you said
something
you used
about
to watch
anime.
anime all the time.
Oh, you used to watch anime like really all the time.
Yes, because I was young at the time. Joining the workforce severely restricted my time from watching anime. Um, yes, so interestingly,
I
though
mean,
I was,
these days, Gen X, Gen Alpha, I mean, they're too much into anime and manga, yeah?
I
I
mean,
know so many kids.
I'm not even sure if that's like a thing that's concerning or that's just good. It's cultural immersion.
The
Uh,
concerning bit about, at least what I feel, is there's too much violence in manga, yeah? Too
well,
much.
some manga, yes. And I mean, if you're a parent, which I know you are, you will have to be very careful as to
Yeah.
which manga and anime your kid's getting into,
Okay.
because
Huh.
there
Huh.
are some very heartwarming themes out there, very family oriented. And then you've got
Okay.
something which is like, all to do with, well, blood and gore. Yeah, but the interesting thing is that while I was in Japan, I never visited the Pokemon store, which was a big deal back then. And when in our Japanese class, our teacher asked us why we came to Japan. Almost everybody in my class said, "Well, we want to visit that Pokemon store, and we want to visit these, theme parks that are based on anime and manga." And I
Right.
said, "Well, I am here to watch Japanese theater." So it surprised even me because, like you said, I was a manga and anime buff. But when I was in Japan, I barely watched any or read any. I did visit the bookstores, and I found many of those manga, but I didn't purchase them. I was just excited to see them there.
Right.
Um, but yes, that's the thing. And I grew up on some classic animation, of course, like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, and a
Right.
few others, which then got reprised over the years, and
What about the very famous ones? Though not they're not mangas like Doraemon and all.
yeah, so
Animated characters.
Doraemon is like a different generation from me. I can't really get excited about it.
I used to love Doraemon, and my kid loves Doraemon. Doraemon
Well,
is very interesting, yeah. Very,
yeah,
very interesting.
well,
The
that's good to
characters.
hear. That's good to hear. I can't really
Although
share your enthusiasm for it. Uh,
I mean, you don't have to because I can't bear anime and manga. Personally, I
but
just
you're
can't
watching
bear.
Doraemon.
And I remember you have convinced me so many times to watch some of the series. Not
Yes,
anime,
right,
but
right. But I'm sure I also spoke to you about anime, and I would have curated them well for you. So maybe I should, renew my efforts to get you to good anime.
oh God, okay, God save me.
So I did visit a Ghibli store that was in
Hmm.
Tokyo.
My
And
next question was to be on Ghibli, but
yes,
okay.
so
Huh.
Studio Ghibli store, and they had the cutest merchandise for all the Ghibli films. And I
Oh.
remember I picked up a puzzle, and that was to do with these. I forget the name of the animation, but there were like two sisters, little
Hmm.
girls there, and
Hmm.
I was traveling with my sister, who was like a tween at that time, and it was her birthday, so I bought that puzzle for her. And I told her, well, when you make it, think of me, right? I don't know if she ever got to it because tweens, they're not really that focused. But I remember I got it for her. And I also got myself a little bag charm in leather, and that
Okay.
had the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service. And I
Oh.
still have that hanging onto my handbag, the one that I take to work. So the leather
Okay.
came off. And my mother, who's very good at restoring old things, she scraped off the remaining leather that was just sticking out, in an unseemly way. And now it's like a different color. It's like a light tan.
Hmm.
And sometimes when I'm at work, under pressure, under deadlines, and I turn my head and I see that Kiki's Delivery Charm, sticking there on my work handbag, and I'm like, hey, the life is still whimsical. All right.
And it's so sad that these days Ghibli by Miyazaki, there's been uh I mean the AI has completely ruined it for the artists, the Japanese, and everyone who really used to love or love Ghibli.
Hmm.
Because
I,
nowadays it's
yeah.
just generated on AI. And people
Yeah,
actually don't know who a real artist is or which
right.
country is
Although
it from.
plus side of it has been, I see on Instagram that there is a lot of talk about Ghibli in the context of AI. So suddenly it's coming into the public eye, And at least in India, I know not everybody knows about
Spotlight.
Ghibli. It was
A lot
not
of
so
spotlight
popular.
on it.
Yes, a
Hmm.
lot of spotlight on it because of this Ghiblification of the AI. And I do know you have personal reason for disliking it because we had a group photograph, right, with you in it, which we Ghiblified.
And I
And
got but that
yeah,
was AI's fault, not Ghibli's fault.
that was
That's
pretty funny.
that stupid chat GPT, you see.
I know, yeah, we were like, where's Shweta? And like, there's one person missing. Okay. Oh, yes. Luckily for me, I grew up with the charm of Ghibli. No, and when I was in the US, I got to attend some workshops on Ghibli films.
Oh,
where we
wow.
like full-blown discussions on them. We did research on Ghibli themes. So I have very warm, fuzzy feelings regarding Studio Ghibli. And I mean, nobody can control what happens to the Ghiblification of the AI that AI is bringing in. But I like to look at the positive side of it. And I think after a certain point, people will tire of the very bland Ghiblification that's happening because it's nothing like the actual
It's nothing
animation.
like the actual.
Right.
People know Ghibli. Earlier, people wouldn't know Studio
Exactly.
Ghibli. Or
Exactly. That's what I'm
if it's from
saying.
Japan or from,
Hmm.
for all you know, from France, from where is it? I mean, a lot of people would call it Ghibli initially. People wouldn't know what is Ghibli at all. So at
Yes.
least it's become famous and
And the
it's
hope is
become.
that people will watch Ghibli films more now because,
Hmm,
I mean, the themes of Ghibli films, I think, are very relevant for the current times.
okay.
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't know about Ghibli films.
Uh-huh.
I only thought that they are being done by this artist as
Hmm.
on canvas or something, but I didn't know
Yes.
that they're full blown movies.
Nothing to it, like nothing beats that level of meticulousness, that level of loving detail. And yes, so
Mm,
Ghibli talks a lot about love for the environment and
mm,
the innocence of children as a strength of humanity. No, and
mm,
if you can keep that childlike innocence alive in you, that is your strength. That is how you
mm,
build better societies. And yes, really, really beautiful themes, worth watching. Worth
mm.
watching with the whole family. In fact.
Oh, I feel that one side of Japan, one part of their culture, or popular culture, I would say, is full of what do you call violence. In fact,
Hmm.
Japan's history is full of violence. On the
Hmm.
other side, they have concepts like ikigai,
Hmm.
wabi-sabi,
Hmm.
zen,
Hmm.
and their serene gardens,
Hmm.
uh, that kind of a lifestyle, the tea ceremonies. That's just completely different side of Japan.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you, have you attended any workshops for any of those, or have you been to any museums? Like, Japanese dolls are so famous. Their lacquerware,
Uh,
the
yes.
and
Hmm.
I mean, not just lacquerware, calligraphy,
Ah,
and all
yes.
of that. Have you
Hmm.
ever attended any of those classes?
Uh, yes. So regarding the dolls, the Japanese puppet theater is
Puppet
a
theater, you
thriving
would say.
industry, yes.
Hmm.
And it's called bunraku. So I took a class on Japanese theater. So there were three kinds of theater that we studied. One is no. And no, I mean, to explain it to a lay person, it's really slow moving. It, and the first time and the only time I watched No in person was in India. No, in Delhi, we had an
Oh,
Indo-Japan something going on.
of course.
Uh, and
I
I
was
went
also
there with
there.
my parents, and I remember that I fell asleep between one act and the next.
To the
It was
other.
that slow. But in this class, I learned to appreciate it because, it's a lot to do with the expressions and, the mask that they wear. So the same mask, when you turn your head a little like this, little like that, it changes
Hmm.
expressions. And so you have to really pay attention to that. Then the second we learned about was kabuki, and kabuki is more fast moving. And yeah, but I didn't actually get to watch kabuki because I bought a ticket and it was expensive, and on the day of the performance I misplaced it. So yes, another heartbreaking
Right.
story from Japan. But bunraku, I was
Oh my
very
God.
lucky to be able to watch in person. So we went to this theater and it was a grand stage, right? And the curtains were just like one color. I think it was like a deep blue with like a big logo in the center, and then it opens with this tuck 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 sound, which is very common to Japanese theater. And then we had almost like these there were puppets that were like half my length, and there were those that looked very like life size. And it was amazing. We were watching these puppets like stab each other and betray each other, and it's like these
Oh
couples are
my.
cheating on each other. It was like a whole drama, and it was so convincing. I
Ah,
absolutely loved it. And then afterwards, so we got to go backstage and
ah.
see the puppets, like with their costumes and with the different kinds of shoes and accessories. And I was just really amazed how they brought these dolls to life.
And last question, what is a good season to go to Japan for an Indian?
For an Indian, I mean, the Indians are assaulted by the vagaries of the weather. So I think we're pretty
Exactly. That's why I
army
asked.
people. We can go in
Hmm.
any season. But I would suggest, and this is for everybody, not just Indians in particular, but
Huh.
the onset of fall and the onset of
Hmm.
spring, because in one you get to see the red momiji leaves everywhere,
Oh,
and in the other you get to see the pink cherry blossoms, the
cherry
sakura.
blossoms.
And
Hmm. From April, spring season.
perhaps Perhaps
Yes.
because I mean,
Hmm.
in the 4 months that I was living there, I got to view cherry blossoms and I got to view plum blossoms. I wasn't there for momiji season because I
Okay.
went there in December. So momiji would have been around October, November, I think.
October. Mhm.
And there is also the concept of the cherry blossom storm. Uh, so that also is something that tourists do time their visits with, like they want to be
What's
there
that?
cherry blossoms.
Okay, they're flying in the air.
Yes,
The
so it's
flowers.
not like a typhoon, but it's
No.
just, cherry blossoms are floating around everywhere. It's very windy
Wow.
and pink petals in
Wow.
the wind. So, but other than that, I would say, go to Japan whenever your heart feels like it. I always tell everybody you should visit Japan at least once in your lifetime.
Mm.
It's really a place worth experiencing.
And then you wouldn't like the din of India.
I mean, it's again, if you visit Tokyo and you
Mm.
stay there for the entirety of your stay, you may not become that sensitive to noise pollution. But Osaka was like, after 7 p.m., it used to be so silent. Hirakata, where I was, completely silent. And then I remember asking my host's parents and host siblings, I said, like, what are people doing after 7? Right? There are no youth even out there on the streets. And she said, well, they're all in
Don't they
karaoke
have a life?
bars or in pachinko bars. I was like, okay,
And I
that's
was thinking,
interesting.
don't they have
But
life? Oh my God. Mm.
oh, they do have a life and they're living it up behind closed doors in pachinko, pachinkos and karaoke's. And also then I was in Ishikawa after
Behind
that,
closed
right?
doors,
Which is
yes.
which is
Mm.
the Ishikawa was so silent that and like I mentioned that it's an upscale countryside, right? And the homes are mostly old architecture, right? So in our rooms we used to have these
Right.
uh, ikebana is like floral arrangements, and it would be so
Right.
silent that we
Japanese
could hear
flowers.
the leaves crumbling and
Huh.
falling at night. Right?
Oh,
And that's what we used to talk about in the mornings. That did you hear the leaves crumbling and falling? It's like, there's
oh
hardly any
my
sound.
goodness.
And for me, because I was hiking all over the city and visiting different museums, right? And that city, or whether you call it a town, was so, so silent. The only sound would be, like stray sound of the traffic, and that also infrequent. And the splashing of the koi fish in the water in the ponds. So I used to spend many hours just gazing at the ponds like that. So yes, when I returned to Delhi, I was assaulted
Very bad.
by noise.
Wow.
Yes, that made me, crave Japan even more, the Japanese
Hmm.
experience. It made me appreciate it even more. So I think it's good to experience extremes. No,
Hmm.
you have to have something to compare one thing to the other.
To the
And
other.
that's also the way to appreciate everything that you're experiencing. Sometimes
And
comparison is good because it helps you appreciate something good about everything.
it really expands your horizons. And
Yes.
everything in the world, had it been the same, then you wouldn't experience, you
Right.
wouldn't
And then
have,
you would take things for granted. Yes, now I'm feeling that I must make a fifth visit to Japan sometime
you
soon.
must. And this year I must too.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Hideko. I'm really grateful that you've come to my podcast and shared your experiences with us. So, sayonara.
Sayonara, Shweta Jen, and as the Japanese would say, arigato gozaimasu, which is deep, deep thank you.
Arigato.
So friends, like my video, share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel.